Good afternoon. Australians have been caught in the middle of another telco fail with a massive Telstra outage, crippling mobile and data services across the country. It's wreaked havoc on everything from payment services to train networks, even 000. It's also triggered a political brawl. Jacqueline Robson has the latest.
Good afternoon. Well, most of the Telstra network is now back up and running, but exactly what caused this major outage is still being investigated. There have been widespread impacts right across the country, including on our national freight network and our rail networks. For commuters, it was chaos, not being able to use phones. Businesses were without FPOS, many reverting back to bank transfers or cash. The issues began emerging in the early hours of this morning. Telstra locating the problem to a timing issue to do with nodes inside two data centres in Sydney and Melbourne. Why the timers broke and why such a massive problem is yet to be explained. We know dozens of 000 calls failed. Welfare checks are now being carried out right across the country. No one able to say yet if it's caused any serious medical issues.
We don't yet know the root cause. We are investigating that urgently. 000 calls follow a different settings in our network, and therefore they were not impacted in the same way.
The Federal Communications Minister coming back from holidays to deal with the issue, rejecting suggestions from One Nation's Barnaby Joyce that foreign interference from China must be looked at.
I don't want to be sort of, conspiracy theorist, startle, but I do think a diligent process is to make sure that this is there's nothing malevolent in this.
When it comes to matters of national security, you shouldn't make stuff up.
Telstra is yet to say whether it will offer compensation to those businesses affected, but the telco giant could be facing even greater costs. New fines for these types of major blackouts have been increased, now up to $30 million.
Jacqueline Robson reporting. Multiple military-style rifles have been seized during a major police raid in Sydney's west. 9 people, including a number of teens, are now before the courts. Nick Overall has the exclusive details.
Police swooped on the home in Punchbowl just before 6 o'clock yesterday morning.
Exclusive pictures obtained by 7 News show the group being arrested at the home. At least half a dozen officers surrounded the property in the early morning. You can see some of those officers are heavily armed. It is understood they seized a number of items from the property, including 3 automatic rifles, which may have been modified. Loose ammunition was also allegedly discovered, as well as measuring scales and latex gloves, and a small amount of illicit drugs. 9 people have fronted court today facing a range of charges. They include possession of unregistered firearms and participation in a criminal group. There's quite an age range here as well. The oldest, it's believed, is around 23. The youngest are teenagers, potentially all part of a youth gang in the western suburbs, targeted in a major police operation.
More details in the news at 6 tonight.
A heartbroken husband has told 7 News he had a beautiful marriage, today paying tribute to his wife killed in a unit fire in Randwick yesterday. Emily Francis has more.
Good afternoon. The family of Vicky Velakis are this afternoon coming to grips with her tragic death just 24 hours after this Randwick unit went up in flames.
Aged in her 70s, Vicky had lived here with husband Minos for 34 years. It's the home they shared for their entire marriage before it caught fire yesterday afternoon.
It was a beautiful marriage, believe me, it was. Every marriage has ups and downs. We had ours too, but she was the best.
Neighbours believe the blaze began in the kitchen before quickly spreading.
Finn, don't go too close, you can explode.
Vicky and the couple's dog, Bobby, were trapped inside. The woman was pulled from the rubble by firefighters and treated by paramedics, but died at the scene.
After 34 years of my life that we shared together, she's gone. She's gone.
A man aged in his 30s was also treated for smoke inhalation.
The cause of the fire is still under investigation, but at this stage it's not being treated as suspicious.
The United States Central Command says it has completed a new round of retaliatory strikes against Iran after Iranian forces targeted 3 tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. The US struck back, claiming to have hit more than 80 targets. It says precision munitions were used to strike air defence systems and coastal radar sites. The escalation threatens the already fragile ceasefire, with further talks now on hold as crowds mourn the death of the regime's slain leader. This latest outbreak of violence comes as Donald Trump arrives in Turkey for a summit with his fellow NATO leaders. The US president issuing renewed threats to remove US troops from Europe and criticising the key Western alliance. Europe correspondent Ben Downey is in Ankara.
Well, it was quite the welcome that Donald Trump received from Turkish President Erdogan, really one of the few remaining NATO world leaders still in the US president's good graces. Erdogan made the rare move of actually greeting the US president on the tarmac, something he rarely does for other world leaders. Then the pair made the journey to the presidential palace for a grand ceremony that involved a flyover of multiple jets. Finally, they were joined by the world leaders of the other 30 NATO member nations at dinner. That no doubt involved some difficult and potentially awkward conversations, because Donald Trump wasted no time here or in Ankara actually attacking the NATO alliance for failing to support the US in its war in Iran. Donald Trump also threatened to remove US troops from Europe because NATO won't allow him to take ownership over Greenland. And finally, as ever, the US president professes he can play peacemaker between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky.
I think they both want to make a deal. It's too bad it took so long. They both want to get it. More than that, that's all I do in my life is deals. I know deals. And I think they are going to, I think we're going to get it settled, hopefully soon.
Lastly, it's been heavily hinted that Donald Trump will drop sanctions on Turkey, allowing it to purchase F-35 fighter jets that Australia has a role in manufacturing. That's if everything here in Ankara can continue to go to plan.
Ben Downey reporting. Winning a State of Origin decider in Brisbane is the daunting task facing New South Wales tonight. Jaleesa Apps is at the Blues Hotel in the Queensland capital. Jaleesa, New South Wales fans have descended on Caxton Street too.
They certainly have, Hugh. It's a daunting task indeed. Not that you'd know from the players. They were up very early this morning, looking very relaxed, both the players from the Blues and the Maroons. Up early too were the fans that have both travelled here and that are from Queensland. We were hanging around Caxton Street before midday, and a few of them were getting into the drinking and getting into the celebrations. I don't know if they're going to actually see the game, but they were certainly into the celebrations very early.